So we pulled the motor out of my CRV here. I've been revving this thing pretty high. It's a 2.4 liter 99 mil stroke motor. So I was a little worried about the ARP 2000 rod bolts failing on me. So yeah, I pulled the motor out and it's getting the rod bolts upgraded and doing a few other minor upgrades here or there while it's apart. So yeah, we're just gonna go over those with you guys. So this is part of upgrading the rod bolts on this engine. We want to check how far out around the big end of the connecting rods go from these new bolts. So just for science, we're gonna measure the rods with the old bolts and then measure with the new Custom Age 625 bolts. That way we can kind of see for ourselves and show everybody how much a rod like this goes out around. So we'll get the inside mic in here. We already zeroed it out on these bolts. So you can see we just hit 0 there on this axis. And then we'll move it 45 degrees. So we're just a little bit out around here. Just a hair. Nothing much. And this way we're just a little out around in the other direction. But it's pretty damn close. So now we're gonna pull these bolts out and put the stronger bolts in. All right, so here's a shot of the 2 bolts. On the left, we got the Custom Age 625, and on the right, we got the ARP 2000. You can see the 625 bolt has a bit beefier of a shoulder on it. Otherwise, they look pretty much the same though. All right, so one thing you want to make sure to do when installing pretty much any ARP fastener is get their assembly lube on the threads, and also make sure to get it under the head of the bolt, because a lot of the friction that's created when you tighten the fastener is from the underhead of the bolt. So make sure to get that thoroughly on everything here before you put it in where it belongs. And another one of the differences with these bolts is the ARP 2000s go to 43 foot-pounds of torque, and then ARP specifies 60 foot-pounds for these. Or you can torque them by the stretch of the bolt. I don't have a torque stretch gauge for the bolts, so we're just going by the recommended torque spec. It's a good idea to clean the threads out. Make sure there's no other lubricants in the threads that will throw off the torque readings as well. I did that when the camera wasn't on, so. And it's good to just snug them up a bit before you go to the full torque. Get them both kind of snug down, and then go to 60 foot-pounds. All right, now we can all right, so we're gonna check the roundness of the rod now with the Custom Age 625 bolts in here. I already went ahead and zeroed it on the center axis here. So you can see we got lines right up at 0 here. Go 45 degrees. Looks like we go about, yeah, maybe 0.02 of a millimeter. Sorry, 0.002 of a millimeter in that direction. So that's about 1/10,000th of an inch. And in this direction, we're about 0.01 millimeters out of round. So about 4/10,000ths of an inch. So 0.0004 inches out of round in this direction. It's probably runnable like that, but this engine does frequently see over 9,000 RPM, so I'm gonna have these, the big end of these rods machined, and yeah, then we'll get it back together. All right, so I put a little diagram here of where we're sitting. So this was with the ARP 2000 bolts. Pretty damn close to being round. 1/10,000th of an inch out of round at the worst spot, so fairly insignificant. And then the Custom Age 625. One axis we are 1/10 thou out, which is not bad, but then the other we're 4/10,000ths out. We've got about 1.5 thou oil clearance on this engine, so losing almost a third of that to the rod being out of round is not ideal. So yeah, like mentioned, we're gonna get that sorted out by the machine shop. So Jesse here is giving the crankshaft a quick polish. It's in all right shape overall, but I did see a little bit of action. We're thinking maybe we need to run a heavier weight oil in this thing. But yeah, we polished this already. It was looking a little rougher earlier. There's a little bearing material transfer here, so we hit it with some 1200 grit and knocked down the high spots. We don't really want to grind this crank. It should be fine as is. So there's a few low spots here, but it's I would say it's serviceable. Doesn't look the prettiest here, but yeah, this one won't clean up perfect, but the rest they're gonna clean up pretty good. And I think with some heavier weight oil, we'll be doing all right here. So this is the number 4 main journal. It probably got the second worst of the damage, but it's pretty minor, to be honest. This one should clean up pretty well. So we'll show you guys the process you can use to clean up some minor damage on your crankshaft on something like this. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is get a measurement on the main journal here, just so we can have a good idea of what we've actually removed. Whenever you're using a micrometer, it's best to zero it. They pretty much all come with a standard to zero it. This is just a Chinese AliExpress micrometer. I've had it for like 6 years. It's actually, I've compared it to some much more expensive ones, and it's very accurate. The only downside to these ones is they will have to kill batteries. Otherwise, it is pretty solid. So then you want to just give the journal a wipe. Make sure there's no debris on it. It's going to interfere with your measurement. And as you're tightening the micrometer, you want to give it a little bit of a wiggle, or what can happen is it'll give you a measurement with the tool being just slightly crooked, and it'll throw your measurement off. So we got 2.1655. So now we'll show you guys the process of cleaning this journal up, and we will take another measurement after that.
So you got a little strip of 2000 grit 3M sandpaper. High quality paper makes this better. I've definitely used lots of Chinese made papers, off-brand papers. You'll find that they're not really the grit that they say, and the finish will be different. And the goal here is not material removal, but rather just surface conditioning. We're just trying to make this thing as smooth as possible, get rid of all high spots.
Yeah, and those low quality papers also change grit quickly
while you're using them. Yeah. So what we've done here is basically just measured the circumference, cut the strip to the correct width, and there's not a lot of magic to it, but simply getting that piece of paper in with some lubrication.
We're just using WD-40 for the lubricant.
And use a cotton skate lace. Wider the better. And there is a bit of technique to this, because again, we're trying not to really affect the geometry of this bearing surface. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to lightly pull in an upward direction, and Ben is going to rotate the crank every once in a while to try to keep material removal even.
Yeah, that way we make sure kind of each axis of the crank gets like an equal amount of work done on it.
And you'll notice that this the lace will travel kind of back and forth, left to right, in a nice consistent motion. So you know, it actually, the results here are very good, surprisingly good, and we will prove that with the measurements at the end. All right, we're ready to go.
Let's do it.
So that paper's breaking down and it's feeling smoother and smoother as we're doing this. And once we do a full rotation of the crank, we'll stop. One more? Yeah, I think we're
that's about it.
All the way around.
Yep. You're around twice there.
All right. Definitely helps to have two guys, but obviously you can do this by yourself. And it looks kind of gross and rough. And then when you wipe off all the debris, you're getting a very nice finish underneath. And that right there is already an improvement. There's some grease on it. I'm just gonna grab a clean cloth.
It's looking quite good actually already.
So yeah, looking pretty good. I mean, it's already approaching like a mirror finish, but we're gonna take it a step further, which is quite easy.
Yeah, a lot of times when you get a crank from the machine shop, it doesn't even look that consistent, so.
But basically, next step, you just take your polish product of choice. I like this one. I find it works great on stainless, also aluminum, everything else. And really doesn't take a whole lot. Just a little smear, top and bottom.
You want to make sure you clean your crankshaft very thoroughly after this, so you get all the abrasive material off the outside and the inside of the crankshaft.
And this part's even easier, no measuring or cutting involved. And you're just simply using the lace to work that polish into the surface. And we'll do this twice just for absolute certainty because we want a really great result. And we want to be confident when we're revving this thing to 9,500 RPM on boost that everything's going to be good. Here we go. And just one more quick once over. And that right there is probably good.
Give it a wipe, get the compound off. Should be looking pretty good now.
Yeah, the more you buff it, the shinier it gets because it's really just the residual compound and stuff that's you know, breaking up the mirror.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, it's looking pretty good compared to what it was, especially when you take into account there's still some polishing compound on there, smearing it. But that'll go away once we do the final clean on this thing, which we'll do once we get all these journals cleaned up.
yeah, let me just clean it.
All right, so here's how we're looking on this this journal now that it's cleaned up a little better. It's got a pretty smooth finish now. Especially for a hand job. Definitely usable. So now we'll just we'll grab a measurement on this so we can get a before and after comparison. All right, so now that we got this journal polished, we're gonna get another measurement so we can do a comparison on just how much material's removed. Shouldn't be anything significant. Yeah, now we got 2.1653. And over here we have our previous measurement, 2.16545. So 1 to 2 10,000ths of an inch. Nothing major at all. If anything, it opens our clearance up a little bit closer to where we want it. So
combined with the increase in oil viscosity, it should be a better result than the original setup, original clearances.
So one of the other things we're doing to this thing while it's apart is just giving this thing a bit of a paint job. This block is not the prettiest, so just gonna put a bit of a kind of a low effort paint job on it. It won't be the nicest thing we've ever done, but it'll look better than this crustiness. So yeah, we've already cleaned the block up, and yeah, we're just gonna brush the paint on, and yeah, just make it look better than it was. Well, Jesse got the crank all polished up here. It's looking pretty damn good now, I would say. Big improvement from where it's at. Still got this bit of this scoring here, but it's all just low spots, nothing to worry about. You can't even feel it with your finger, so we'll give it one last clean so we can get all the shit out of it internally, but otherwise it's pretty much ready to be a crank again. Here we are painting the block. This is our first time doing a block with a brush. Figured we'd try something different. It actually doesn't work too bad. Makes the masking a lot easier. You don't have to worry about overspray getting anywhere. And yeah, you don't really need to trim the masking tape. You just kind of push the paint in there. Yeah, it's just coming along. Look a little nicer. Nicer than it did. Won't be the prettiest block on the planet, but good enough. All right, well, here's the block after paint. Using the brush technique. Doesn't give quite as nice of a finish as the spray cans we usually do, but we wanted to give it a try. I'm not too picky on how this block looks anyway, so it does seem like it'll be a lot more durable than spray paint though, so interested to see how that actually pans out. But yeah, block is painted, mostly clean. We got one more clean before assembly, but yeah, it's looking a lot better than it did.